Good morning, everybody, and welcome back to The Walk. Today is Friday, April 25th, and we're up to Ezekiel 44, verse 17. And we're in the middle of these rules for the Levitical priests. There's a lot to cover. We're going to jump right into verse 17. When they enter the gates of the inner court, they shall wear linen garments. They shall have nothing of wool on them, while they minister at the gates of the inner court and within. Okay, why do they have to have linen garments and no wool? Cultural Study Bible had some information on this, and it said, the reason for the prohibition of wool appears to be a practical one. Wool was more likely to cause one to sweat. Since all bodily excretions caused defilement, steps needed to be taken to prevent their occurrence in the temple complex. This also appears to be the case in Egypt, where according to Herodotus and the Roman writer Lucian, linen was also used in the material for priestly garments. Herodotus adds that the Egyptian priests consistently washed their linen garments. So it's just to prevent being sweaty. That's what it's about. It's all about not being sweaty. And if you're like me, I don't like to be sweaty. I'm going to do everything I can to stay cool. All right, so now we have a note that goes from chapter 44, verses 17, all the way to 31, when it says, enter the gates. This is from the ESV Fire Study Bible. It says, this regulation for the priests indicates that the people must worship God with holy reverence. They must be pure and complete and have respect and honor for God. So verse 18, they shall have linen turbans on their head and linen undergarments around their waists. They shall not bind themselves with anything that causes sweat. And when they go out into the outer court to the people, they shall put off the garments in which they have been ministering and lay them in the holy chambers. And they shall put on other garments, lest they transmit holiness to the people with their garments. They shall not shave their heads or let their locks grow long. They shall surely trim the hair of their heads. Okay, so they have to keep their hair short. They have to be neat. They have to be trimmed. And what's really interesting to me that jumped out at me here is that they have to put on other clothing so they don't accidentally transmit some of the holiness to the people. I found that really interesting. And when I dug into that, basically what it meant is that holiness was reserved for this Levitical line. In the Cultural Study Bible, the reason they don't shave their heads is that shaving the head bald or letting the hair grow very long was most likely forbidden because of the pagan customs associating it with the Canaanite cults of the dead. The taboo has its inspiration from Leviticus 21, verse 21. No priest shall drink when he enters the inner court. Why not? Cultural Study Bible had the answer. This prohibition has its parallel in Leviticus 10:9. Though pagan cultic intoxication was well known from the Babylonian creation epic Enuma Elish, it is most likely that the prohibition was to make sure that the priest had control of his faculties. So they want to make sure that the priests have their wits about them, that they're not getting drunk. Sorry, my dog's barking. Keys, no, we're not. Stop. Verse 22, they shall not marry a widow or a divorced woman, but only virgins of the offspring of the house of Israel, or a widow who is the widow of a priest. Why is this prohibition on this? Well, it comes from Leviticus 21:7 and verses 13 to 15. It appears in Leviticus 21:15. And according to the Cultural Study Bible, that the concern was for the dilution of the purity of the priestly line, although Ezekiel does not mention the reason for the prohibition. Verse 23, they shall teach my people the difference between the holy and the common, and show them how to distinguish between the clean and the unclean. They're to teach what's of God and what's not of God. In a dispute, they shall act as judges, and they shall judge it according to my judgments. They shall keep my laws and statutes in all my appointed feasts, and they shall keep my Sabbaths holy. They shall not defile themselves by going near to a dead person, However, for father or mother, for son or daughter, for brother or unmarried sister, they may defile themselves. After he has become clean, they shall count 7 days for him, and on the day that he goes into the holy place, into the inner court, to minister in the holy place, he shall offer his sin offering, declares the Lord. This shall be their inheritance. I am their inheritance, and you shall give them no possession in Israel. I am their possession. Okay, this got really interesting to me. Why is God saying that he is their inheritance and their possession? Well, the Cultural Study Bible had a little bit of note about why they're not supposed to have any possessions. The priests were actually invited to eat Yahweh's food. For more information, we're to see Numbers 18:8-19 and their notes. They were also authorized to eat the harem, every irredeemable devoted thing. These items were evidently those designated for any use, except that which was prescribed for the cult. Okay, so back to that original question. Why does God say, I am their inheritance, I am their possession? Because they're to give their entire lives and be completely devoted to God. And in return, God provides for them. It's a complete and total reliance on God. Verse 29, they shall eat the grain offering, the sin offering, and the guilt offering, and every devoted thing in Israel shall be theirs. And the first of all the fruits of all kinds, and every offering of all kinds from all your offerings shall belong to the priests. You shall also give to the priest the first of your dough, that a blessing may rest on your house. The priest shall not eat of anything, whether bird or beast, that has died of itself or is torn by wild animals. So they've got very specific directions about what they can eat, what they can't eat. They're not to have something that's torn by wild animals. Why? Because now it's defiled. They're to keep that holiness. And that holiness is a message for us. We're to keep that holiness. We don't need to look like the rest of the world. We should be set apart just as these Levitical priests were. Today is Friday. I'm going to remind you there's no video Saturday, Sunday, but I'll be back with you on Monday. Have a wonderful day. God bless, and keep walking the walk.